Is there anything you want to say about Anzac Day? Is there anything you want to just kind of chat through? It's tomorrow. We're kind of at 10:07, so we could wrap up any time as well. But this is, I mean, like when I
Yep.
say it's more your world, I watched the Australian production of that ANZAC's docu-series. It wasn't a docu-series, it was a dramatic series on Netflix. We
Yeah, yeah.
talked about this about a month ago. Really good, really good. But
That
as
was
I said,
excellent.
with that Ollie Hellman interview I've done, thinking every time we see Gallipoli, every time we kind of think about it, it starts with the boats landing on the beach. That's
Mm.
always opening shot, or that's always chapter one. And the conversation that you'll hear tomorrow night, Whānau, or if you're a patron, you can hear it now, is actually about what led to the boats on the beach. But anyway, Chewie, as I said, this is, when I say your wheelhouse, it's not that I'm dismissive of it, you just have more knowledge of it and it's more your passion. You want to chuck anything out or have a chat about it at all? I'd love to give you
Yeah.
space.
Look, Anzac's always been an important thing for me, ever since I was a young lad looking at war history stuff and being involved in the cadets. The photos that I'm putting up, by the way, are from my trip to ANZAC in 2015. I remember very clearly the time that I decided that I wanted to go to Gallipoli specifically for the 2015 anniversary, the 100 years. I made that decision at the age of 16
Cool.
as a cadet standing cenotaph guard on the dawn service in Timaru. So that would have been 1995. I made that decision, and to go there, I wasn't at Gallipoli for the dawn service that year. I was at a place called Polygon Wood in Belgium, which was another area of the Western Front where New Zealanders fought.
What are we looking at?
And
What's
I
that beach there?
that is Anzac Beach.
So is
That
that
is where the New
I know
Zealanders
I
land.
know in 100 years the shoreline might have changed, but is that what they had to get up, that cliff that we're looking at?
Yeah, pretty much. So
Whoa.
this is one of the things about the Dardanelles operation. It was fucked up twice. So the British's first idea was that they wanted to sail into the Black Sea to help out the Imperial Russian forces, and you had to sail through the Ottoman Empire, which was on the other side of that argument. So they thought that the sheer might of the Royal Navy would be able to do it. They would just sail some battleships like mad bastards right up this really narrow strip of sea. And the Turks let them have it. They sunk a whole bunch of battleships. They sailed right into a minefield. It was an absolute disaster. So then Winston Churchill, as Lord of the Admiralty, planned out an operation using apparently tourist maps of, well, if we just chuck some troops here and they just march over the hill and then we take out the guns and then we can send up more battleships. The troops that were decided to use were French, Australian, New Zealanders, and English. And yeah, they landed on the wrong beaches. So this is the view from ANZAC Cove. They were supposed to land in a nice place where they could just go up a gentle slope. Instead, they were climbing up that feature, which was called the Sphinx. And they did it under gunfire because all the Turks realized what they were doing and were there to meet them.
Yeah.
And then they just stayed there for 8 months of absolute hell. And that was, yeah, not a big fan of Winston Churchill. Right person at the right time for England in World War II, but an absolute dickhead bastard the rest of the time.
Right.
When I went there, it was in August, so it wasn't too bad. But I walked from the beach right up to the objective that the New Zealanders eventually took. So up these gullies, people would have scrambled. But a very eerie place to be when you've spent a big chunk of your life reading about these places and reading about locations like Quinn's Post or Lone Pine. Very eerie.
The thing you're talking about, it was supposed to be an easy land. In the conversation for tomorrow night, the associate professor talked about there was two places, I think, I don't know if it was Syria, but two places in like the north of Africa that they went into before Gallipoli, and they took them quite easily. And then there was two countries that fell quite easily before that, and they thought that the Ottoman Empire was going to be the same thing, not realizing, as you're saying, what beach they were actually going to land in. So I guess their experience or their expectations were based on just walking into two other countries and just sort of going, okay, this is ours. And then that wasn't quite the case in Turkey.
Oh, this is an interesting one. This is, I believe, a relative of mine. I haven't confirmed it, but Taylors were a branch of my family that lived in Otago. So, yeah, haven't managed to look into the records for that yet, but that is on the list.
Answer me this. I always remember there's a line in Good Will Hunting where Will Hunting is talking to his Robin Williams character, and they're talking about how smart Will is. And Robin Williams just goes, "What does the Louvre smell like?" And of course he doesn't know, because it's all book smarts, So it was a really interesting way to go. You can be really, really, really smart, but experience adds a lot to it. What was it like to walk I feel like I'm interviewing you now, Chewie. Thanks for coming to the show.
Go for it.
What was it like to walk that beach and walk those paths? Like, was it emotional? How did you feel?
It's a weird feeling to know. Yeah, again, I spent half my life reading about these things, reading about these stories. To be there and stand there and know that that's the same place that people walked, that these are the gullies where people died. There was an old trench network that I went to, and I remember rubbing my hand across the dirt because someone said if you do that, you can find shell splinters, little bits of metal from exploding artillery and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And especially after there'd been rain, and there had been rain, so I did that, and little metal flakes came out of the dirt.
Wow.
And I'm sifting through those, and then I realized that in those metal flakes were also little flecks of bone. And I found a bullet casing and all of that sort of stuff, and just realizing that that's how close it is. It's just underneath the surface.
Yeah.
Interesting
metaphor as
just
well.
Yeah, it's when I went to France, the World War I battlefields are now beautiful, lush farmland. But when you've got a guide sitting there going, well, see that ridge over there? That's where the Kiwis were, and this red ridge is where the Germans were. And the plan was that the Kiwis just got out of their trench one morning and started walking up this. And you'd sort of go, okay, so they went down that hillside in the mud, through the creek, and then up the hill on the other side. And it wasn't running, it was walking. It was slogging through mud where you could be seen. And it's just like, well, no wonder that one day in Passchendaele, we lost, I think, 1,300 people in a morning. And especially for those World War I battlefields, I felt rage. I felt sick rage. And when it came to seeing grave markers and that sort of thing, there were certain grave markers that really provoked a very strong reaction for me. One of the things that I learned was how to read the service numbers.
Right.
And I'm just going to put this one up. Once I remember how. So this guy here, Captain Morrell, from the Wellington Regiment, you'll notice there that his service number's on there, 1/557. Now, that meant that he was in the very first intake of soldiers from New Zealand that went away to war.
Wow.
557 was his entry. He was the 557th soldier. But that service number in this place, so I found he was in a little graveyard in a place called Lequenoir in France. His date of death is right before the end of World War I. So ceasefire was on the 11th. He died on the 4th. That service number meant that he left New Zealand. He went to Egypt. He fought all the way through the absolute horror of Gallipoli, and then the rest of the war and the horror of the Western Front, and died right before the end at the age of 26.
Far out.
And seeing those markers and just realizing how how lucky someone could be, and then how
Yeah.
unlucky the same person can be. Like
Yeah.
that's unfair, right? But
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
sense of fairness is like he struggled through all of this. He deserves a happy ending. It doesn't work like that.
Mm.
I saw, people like there's a line of Kiwis there. And seeing the spread of ages, we talk about the young dying in war, very tragic. I saw grave markers from people that were in their late 40s, early 50s,
Right.
and going, well, here I am at nearly 40, 44. Sometimes my knees hurt getting out of bed, and I work in a shop, and going like these guys in early New Zealand, laborers and farmers and that sort of thing, deciding to go on an adventure and living and dying in a trench in France is just shocking. But yeah,
Well,
World War One's one that makes me angry. It's a waste. It
Yeah.
was our first experience in industrialized slaughter. It was done for the very dumbest of dumb reasons. And that is my takeaway on World War One. World War Two is a little bit different. Just because that's a lot more clear cut. We were fighting a big evil, but still, it's not, as you said, white hat, black hat.
Well, that's us for tonight. Thank you for joining us. There's one more super chat we'll get up there because I care. Says, my ancestors must be disappointed with me. My great-grandfather served, as did my grandfather and my father. I have not, but will not forget. It's a different time though, isn't it?
Maybe that's their reward.
Yeah,
they
that's a
served
good
so
point.
you don't have to.
Yeah, there you go. Own that.
You know,
Kia ora again, whānau. The clip you've just watched is brought to you today by our patrons. If you want to be a part of what we do, if you want to get behind what we're doing, if you're enjoying our content and wanting to share our content, then maybe you would consider being a patron to Big Hairy News. Head to www.patreon.com/Big Hairy News to sign up to one of our levels and be a patron. At this point, we are only a listener and viewer supported show. It all comes down to you guys. If you feel like jumping on board to help, then head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. Hooroo.